Located close to the I-75 corridor, midway between Flint and Saginaw, the city of Clio is the hub of a much larger Clio community. Named for the muse of history, Clio boasts recreational and cultural facilities not found in many small towns. The image of Clio is changing from sleepy farm town to that of a cultural and entertainment center. Community spirit shows and projects like the Volunteer Network, with Clio Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and the We Care for Clio campaign. Clio is Our Town all this week on TV5. Here's your host for the Our Town special, Deb Kurtzner.
When you think of Clio, Michigan, do you think of a town rich in cultural opportunities? Before you answer that, listen to what my guests during the next half hour have to say about their town. They say the image is changing and the energy level is high, and their town is ready to take its place as just that, a cultural and entertainment center for the Genesee and Saginaw County areas. It's not just a farm town anymore. Let's find out more about Clio, our town, from the folks who live there. And let's start after these words from some other Clio residents.
From the Clio cast and crew,
No Clio!
welcome
To our town!
During the mid-1800s, when they brought the railroad through northern Genesee County, plans were to bring the tracks to the little community of Pine Run. When they got ready to do that, some politics got in the way, and the tracks were reverted a few miles to the west, and the town of Clio was born. One of the residents of our town, Clio, who can verify that piece of folklore and add some of her own, is lifelong resident Alice Boyce. Alice also happens to be the mayor of our town, Clio. And Alice, your town, from what we've just heard, came about almost by accident. How did that happen?
Well, one, if not two farmers, were not about to sell their property a few miles south of Pine Run, because Pine Run at the time was a real flourishing little neighborhood. They even had a post office. And a mile to the west, there maybe was a grain elevator, maybe a shingle mill, but as a town as such, there was practically nothing. Maybe some blackberry bushes. But because the farmers would not sell the right-of-way to the railroad company was going to have a railroad. Didn't matter what two farmers said, or even one. And so they just simply moved to the west. And when they moved to the west, that brought them where Clio is today.
Okay, when it was moved, and the residents started moving to be where the railroad was.
Probably nobody moved.
Right away.
Pine Run stayed about as it was. But because there was a train station there right away soon, then the town was very quickly platted out even, and became quite a flourishing little town because, of course, of the lumber business that was there.
What else brought the residents to the Clio area besides the lumber business?
Well, I suppose part of it was the fact that as soon as land was cleared, then there was possibility of raising grain, and one of the first buildings, they say, was what today we would call a grain elevator. I don't know what they elevated, but then that would be the type of building where they purchased some the products that the farmers raised.
There seems to be a lot of interest in Clio in preserving the history. I know you have a historical group. The depot has been turned into your museum.
Right.
There's a lot of activity there, isn't there?
You see, there was a group about 1976 who decided that we should have a historical society. So one of the things they did was to contact people in the Michigan Historical Society to come to the town and look it over and see what they might preserve. Because we didn't have wealthy people in that town who built big houses that we could make over into museums or eating establishments. And so for that reason, about the first thing that was built was a hotel. And a fellow by the name of Hill ran this hotel. He was recently out of the Civil War, and he thought he was intellectual, I guess. And so the fellow who owned the grain elevator, his name was Varney. And Hill didn't really like the name Varney very well. It rubbed him the wrong way. So he thought that, why don't we name it for the Muse of History or some classical name? Well, he didn't succeed very well with the men, but they had a party at the hotel, and he got a bunch of women at the hotel. Well, then, of course, they fell for his line that this was intellectual and they would name the town Clio. And, of course, when he got the help of the women around, from the time of that party, they say, the settlement was known as Clio.
As Clio.
Now, it's Clio if you live there, but if you don't live there, be sure it's Clio.
Do you get that a lot from a lot of people visiting the town?
Not only that, I happened to go to the American church in Rome, Italy, one Sunday. The man who came out just ahead of me said, "I'm Simon Davidian of Rotary International." I turned to him and I said, "You spoke in our high school where I teach just this winter." He turned around and said, "Well, I'm sure that I did, and I've met you before." I said, "How do you know all that?" "Well," he said, "I know you come from that town. If you didn't live there, you would call it Clio. But since you live there, I know you're telling me the truth. It's Clio."
Well, you've certainly shared your knowledge of Clio yesterday. I've got a couple of guys in the wings here to talk about your town today. We're going to do that when we come back. We'll take a look at Clio today and what's ahead for Clio. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm the Lion.
Hi, I'm Dorothy,
I'm Tin Man.
and we're from the Cloudcast and Cruise production of The Wizard of Oz.
Welcome to our town.
We care for Clio. Those words are all about the new Clio, or at least the new spirit in this community that appears to be catchy and involving many, many people in Clio. Two of those folks who play a very important role in shaping the direction of Clio today and for years to come have joined me in the studio. I'd like to welcome Nate Yonker, State Representative, who makes his home in Clio, and George Atkin, Clio City Manager. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's talk about the new image as you're projecting it for your town, Clio. Being a farm town isn't necessarily a negative type of image, but what's up? What's the new direction for Clio?
Well, Clio is really a large town. The zip code, 48420, has about 24,000 people in it. Many still do farm, but many also commute to Saginaw and to Flint to work in the plants and in the businesses of the county. But the community in the last 5 years has changed a little bit since the We Care for Clio idea has started, and actually 10 years ago when Project 80 started. 5 years ago, we said we were going to care for each other in our community and do things together, and I think that has motivated much of the change that's happened.
How did that We Care for Clio come about?
Well, it was really just an idea. It didn't really mean anything at the time. We all agreed, the townships, the school district, the city of Clio, all the governmental units, all the clubs and organizations, the Lions, Rotary, all the groups said, let's for 12 months sign a pledge to care for each other for 12 months. And what happened is the idea still continues. The 12 months is over, but the idea goes on.
George, in your reign as city manager in Clio, what are some of the things you've been the proudest of?
Well, I think the most proudest thing is the volunteers that we have in our community and the ability for us to work together. 3 governmental units plus a school board all work together, share together for a better quality of life in Clio and the Clio area.
Let's talk about industrial expansion, the business climate in the city of Clio. I know Vienna Road is just booming around the 75 interchange there. What's on the horizon in that area?
Well, 3 years ago we had 0 industrial jobs in the city of Clio. Now we have over 125 jobs, 6 businesses with new buildings in our industrial park, and we have potential to put many more in there, and we see that happening.
What do you two feel is the biggest challenge or a problem facing your town today?
Well, gee, we feel so good right now. I don't know if we see all the problems as clearly as we should, but I do know that we're convinced that the quality of life in our town will help us make money over the long run, will help our economy develop. So we're working hard on quality of life. Trying to make the quality of life in a town better is a difficult job, and it needs constant attention.
What about the Clio schools? Let's talk about that.
Well, the Clio School is interesting enough. Until just recently, about 4 years ago, had one of the lowest rate of support of any place in the state. We were 450th out of 540 school districts. Since that time, we've taxed ourselves in our community. We've raised our standards of education. In fact, in the last 4 years, we've raised our taxes more than just about any community in the state. We've said we're going to put our mouths and our money behind our schools, and they've improved substantially.
We'll continue our discussion about the quality of life in your town when we come back, but we need to take a break. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Evie Zielinski, a Clio City Council member. Welcome to our town.